jeez, it's Shark Tale! Oh boy, it's finally happening, isn't it? After all these years of reviewing animated features, it was only a matter of time that I find myself in a position where I have to talk about Shark Tale. Oh no wait, I'm sorry, where are my manners? I mean that I get to talk about the Oscar-nominated Shark Tale. Because we all know how Will Smith and the Oscars are such a great combo.
Oh, wow!
Well, to be fair, if I gotta make that joke, I might as well get that out of the way first. Anyways, this is one of those films that has such an unusual reputation. It was released around the time when DreamWorks was at its prime and were Disney's strongest competitors in animation, putting out some of their biggest bangers like Madagascar, Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit with Aardman, and released Shrek 2 during the same year. But then came Shark Tale, who stood out among all the other DreamWorks films that had everyone ask, what the fridge is this? Nowadays, we are used to seeing the studio release some features that can be subpar alongside the awesome ones, but DreamWorks making something that was not good was almost unheard of back in the 2000s. And as a result, despite still being another one of their box office hits, Shark Tale is now known as a punchline, where its existence and its quirks are remembered as a joke more so than the jokes in the feature itself. Then again, I guess that's one way to make itself memorable.
He trips underwater. Who trips underwater?
But let's take a step back from all those prior reactions. It's already been about 2 decades since it came out, and we've seen many movies that could find their audience over time, even if its initial release was pretty bad. And after all these years of laughing at it, maybe there's something to discover that can make Shark Tale more meaningful and not as bad as we first thought. Or maybe that's just the wishful thinking talking in the hopes that the experience won't be too painful. Please have mercy, Oscar.
Yeah, exactly how it looked. That's how it is.
So now that it's time that we dive deep into the tale of the Shark Slayer, what is considered a lie as big as Oscars? That it's as bad as its reputation claims? Or that transforming popular actors into cartoon fish is a good idea for an entire animated movie? Let's find out. The story. You might have heard of this story before, but Shark Tale is a prominent example of using the liar plot, where a little white lie gets carried away to make everyone think that the protagonist is better than what they actually are, and it eventually comes to the point where the truth comes out so that they can later solve the big problem.
Oh, you're a liar.
What? No, hey, I didn't lie, alright? Alright, I lied.
As repetitive as this narrative can be, with several other features using that similar formula, I will not be condemning this movie just for using that type of story. I can see how there can be some benefits when done right, such as delivering a moral about the importance of honesty, which I'll give the movie credit that it does have a bit of that. But of course, you cannot just tell this story alone. You gotta add something extra to it in order to make the experience worthwhile and feel fresh. A good example of that is Rango. It has that same familiar plot, but it's a fun watch thanks to its Western theming and charmingly strange characters that help make it engaging. In Shark Tale, on the other hand, it has a different approach with its story, where the changes or additions they made are nothing. Yep, in terms of the story, all you get is just that exact liar trope. I'll say now that the movie has many problems, but a significant one is how the storytelling is treated as an afterthought. It sets it aside because it believes that its other elements would be strong enough to carry the whole feature, such as the world building of a fish city with its animation, and its all-star cast of big Hollywood names voicing the characters. It has such confidence that those materials are perfect, as if it believes that they would easily make things up for what the story is lacking. And maybe it could have gotten away with that if those other materials didn't suck in the first place. Trust me, this is just the beginning of this review, and I will have plenty of time going down where it went wrong on the other elements. But everything else it offers is unappealing. On top of the horrifying anthropomorphic fish, there are no likable characters to connect with in this story. I understand how this can be more character-driven, since this narrative usually revolves around the protagonist, but the writing doesn't do much to make anything else it offers feel meaningful. At the most, it only sets a basic foundation in the hopes that the animation and actors will do the job for them to fill the rest. And as expected, they don't, because they cannot do a whole lot when the script doesn't give them proper guidance. Not to mention how the conclusion feels rushed, where some problems were resolved a little too well for the sake of getting this movie over with and give literally everyone a happy ending. And it especially doesn't help either that the comedy is a complete failure. Seriously, couldn't they get something like a Jim Carrey fish to help make this funny?
Swim! I mean, I can always swim, but now I can swim.
I changed my mind. I do not want a Jim Carrey fish. But while there is a variety of humor featured, I don't think there was even one joke that made me laugh, because they feel more annoying or even uncomfortable with the way that they can feel forced, or how they try to appeal to adults as much as kids. They even tried to do some pop culture gags, which I find to be interesting here. This was during the time when pop culture references were commonplace in animated features. But with how unfunny the way this film can be, Shark Tale feels like it was the first sign that this type of gag was starting to overstay its welcome.
Are you not entertained?
Oh, Oscar, man!
You can't handle the truth!
Go get him! Go get him!
It's one thing to take an overused plotline as the story, but when the writing doesn't put in the effort to deliver more than just that trope while the other elements fail to compensate, then you're left with just about nothing. In terms of the storytelling, this is just the liar cliché and nothing else. The animation. 2004 was a fascinating time in animation. Fully CG animated films were still considered a relatively new concept, but advancements in the technology started to show since the first Toy Story. At DreamWorks, they were starting to sharpen those skills with Ants and the first two Shrek films, and wanted to go a bit bolder with their next feature. They've already done a lot with the fairy tale world, but now they wanted to see if they can give Life in the Ocean the same far, far away treatment, where Southside Reef is the aquatic equivalent to New York City with familiar advertising that are modified to become fish puns.
Muscle Crow! Jessica Shrimpson! Con Stewart!
I hate this place already. And of course, like any big metropolis, the city is bursting with life with hundreds of fish inhabitants. But not just any fish, fish that were anthropomorphized to have more human traits. And this is where the movie's true claim to fame lies. The fish who look like... that. Now, I'm not gonna be like some angry nerd and shout out,
It blows my mind. It's like, what were they thinking?
because I actually do know what they were thinking. You see, it's common for cartoon characters to be modeled after the actors who voice them. It's a good tactic to help give more credibility to the performances, amongst other reasons why they do so. And there are plenty of examples that you can find throughout the years. From the classics like the Mad Hatter and Alice in Wonderland, to the Renaissance era in the 1990s like the Genie from Aladdin or Phil from Hercules, to some of the more recent films like Sergeant Calhoun and Wreck-It Ralph or Dracula from Hotel Transylvania. Even DreamWorks had practiced doing this when they turned Jennifer Saunders into the fairy godmother and Sylvester Stallone into...
Okay, mama.
a funny-looking brick. I understand that the team wanted to apply that to the characters of Shark Tale to put more emphasis on its recognizable actors, but it does raise one question that I have in mind. Did DreamWorks hire Dr. Moreau to design the fish? Because everything about this scares me. It's worth noting that this was also during the time when CG was still mainly pursuing realism, and despite being cartoon fish with similar physical traits to their respective voices, they still tried to look as realistic as possible, and the results are frighteningly uncanny. Maybe the sharks are kind of okay because their mouths are simpler and have something that can resemble a nose, but everyone else have these out-of-place human eyes, big puffy lips, a prominent set of teeth, and the nose is gone that just doesn't look right for something that's supposed to be a fish. There's even one that looks like that eye mouth eye emoji meme. I don't know if this movie has a line, but this guy definitely crossed it. I know that they have a goal to help make the environment more immersive, but they indirectly became gruesome with how they look like familiar people who were horrifically mutated. They remind me of 2019's Cats, except with fish and no awkward musical numbers. I'd even go as far and say that the designs are so hopeless that they make everything else in the animation look worse. I'll give it to the animators that they've done the most they could to make the characters lively and expressive to match the energy of the actors, but when they look like this, they just become even more wrong and unnatural.
Sharks are coming to get me!
And they should.
I also feel like the overall look is kind of off, and it was hard to figure out why. I was thinking maybe it's because of the fact that the movie is already around 20 years old. And while that doesn't help the matter, I think it's more because it might have been too ambitious. Maybe the task of making this aquatic modern world was too much to ask for at the time, because it doesn't feel like it's set underwater with the exception of a few clues from the gags and the effects. The lighting and the colors don't seem like they're working together to feel like they all belong in one picture, resulting in some characters to look out of place and have their colors be either too saturated or too muted. And considering that Finding Nemo was able to get it right the year prior, this one shouldn't have an excuse to become debatable if it even looks finished.
There is no happy place with him around.
Okay, please.
And you know what the worst thing is? If they tried something simpler, everything else would have fallen into place because there are some parts of the visuals that are good, like the detailed backgrounds and the expressive character animation. But it's just those cursed designs that really ruin it and spoils both the movements and the textures. There are many beautiful possibilities with making animation that is set underwater, and this had some promising concepts, but this movie should have been set deeper in the ocean where no one can see it. The characters. The big challenge of the Liar narrative is to make the characters, especially the lead, more appealing, to help show the importance of the film's message and feel like you can be engaged with them the whole way through, even when their actions can be questionable. Shark Tale doesn't even try to make their characters likable, and let's just say their personalities are about as charming as how they look. However, one thing that does baffle me about this movie is how it has a unique problem where it's hard to see the characters as characters. Instead, you only see the actors doing their regular shtick or play up some generic archetype. And yes, this is especially because of the designs. It's one thing to only hear the actor and they don't give out a strong performance that can match the character they're playing, but this takes it to the next level where they look too much like their voices, and it's hard to have that illusion that they are their own personality. There's a reason why many people don't remember their names and just call them Will Smith fish or Renee Zellweger fish. At least Jack Black tried to do something that isn't like himself and put on a different voice.
You dig, dog?
Dig, Doug. Doug dig. Dig, Doug. Yeah. Yo, Diggy Dog.
Just come on.
It's kind of annoying, but I appreciate the effort. But no matter who plays them, the characters can be either a bland or despicable bunch, and none could be more loathsome in the ocean than Oscar. The hardest thing I had to do when watching this was to find a reason why I should consider him to be the good guy or the one I'm supposed to root for. He is one of the most self-absorbed jerks to have been animated with the label of being the protagonist. All of his motives are driven by his own vanity, and he'd do anything to avoid accountability for his own actions, along with desperately trying out any shortcuts he could find that would get him to fame and fortune. And the only personality he has outside of his selfishness is that he's Will Smith in his Fresh Prince mode to make him sound like a smart aleck who uses his wit to try to get out of trouble. And yet, the more I think about it, the more that it's pretty baffling that all the fish in the city believe that he could be capable of taking down a shark when it's pretty clear that he's all talk.
Snap your fin right on the... Snap it. Oscar. You're not snapping it.
Oscar.
Hey, don't sweat it, Sykes. A lot of white fish can't do it, man.
Oscar, would you just sit down, okay?
Thank you.
By his side is Angie, the best friend who has a crush on him, and quite the obvious one too. In fact, throughout the picture, she gives out blatant clues that she loves him, Yet he seems to be so oblivious by her feelings. It made me question how dumb Oscar can be if he can't take the hint at all. Then again, considering that he can only think about himself, I guess that is a testament to his selfishness.
Oh, I swear, sometimes I want to take your big, dummy head and just...
There is also Sykes, who is his boss and then his Hollywood-like manager after telling the Shark Slayer lie, voiced by Martin Scorsese, and is accompanied by his Jamaican jellyfish henchmen who have more grotesque teeth than brains.
Ernie, you made a joke. Good one, man. Respect.
And then there is Lola, the disturbing Jessica Rabbit-looking femme fatale who hooks up with Oscar just to get closer to his newfound riches. And I say disturbing not because of how much of a gold digger she is, but because she makes the movie believe that it could be sexy. And I am not okay with Shark Tale telling me that I should be turned on by this.
You just show him who's boss, and those sharks will leave you alone.
But of course, we cannot talk about Shark Tale without mentioning the shark himself, Lenny. What's interesting to note about him is that there were some discussions that claim Lenny is a metaphor for the LGBTQ+ community, that his vegetarianism can be seen as being gay or trans, and struggles with coming out to his own father, who is all about keeping up traditional values. As crazy as that may sound, I can see where that's coming from. Funny enough, it does add this progressive layer to supply a subtle commentary about coming out. Rather, if that was intentional or not, I'm not sure, and it would have been a bit more effective if they didn't play off Lenny as just some flamboyant comic relief.
My Lenny is a killer, you hear me? A cold-blooded killer. Look at him.
Huh?
However, that is nothing compared to the other sharks in the film, led by the Godfather Don Lito, played by Robert De Niro. Believe it or not, the movie faced some controversy back in 2004 for having Italian-American stereotypes, or more specifically, presenting the bad sharks as the mafia. And honestly, that's exactly what they are presented as. The typical gangsters who want to take down the lead for personal reasons, and I can understand why they got offended.
I got some news about the guy who took out Frankie.
These characters not only look bad, but their roles boil down to just being tiresome tropes or even stereotypes where the contribution of the actors do nothing to improve their personalities. Never forget that there are plenty of fish in the sea, but make sure you avoid the ones like these so that you don't have a bad time. As a DreamWorks movie, this is the studio's equivalent of shooting fish in an empty barrel. But then afterwards, they quickly forget about it and the fish is just rotting there untouched. That's what Shark Tale feels like, seeing a stinky dead fish at the bottom of the barrel. Out of all the movies by DreamWorks Animation, I'd place Shark Tale among the weakest features they've made. If not, then the worst. Is there some good that can be found in this? A bit. But those are buried deep within the vast amount of problems this movie carries. From the weak story that didn't even try to update its own cliche, to the cringy comedy, to the frightening designs that poisons the animation, to the cast of characters that are either a bland archetype or an annoying version of the actors who voiced them. I wouldn't be surprised if the film had its own cult following or people who grew up with it, but other than those groups, the best situation that I could imagine to watch this is if you want to enjoy some dumb bad media. If you're into something where you could just riff on the things that the movie did wrong, then I think this one could be a good recommendation. And if you'd like more recommendations from me and enjoyed this review, then how about hitting that like button and subscribe? Whether it be good or bad, I can always find a movie that could be what you're looking for. And you know what? I think I realized that I made a mistake during this review. This is not a movie that should be looked at with a critical eye. I mean, yes, it's obviously terrible, and I do give this the Animat seal of garbage, but this should be enjoyed as a bad movie. The kind that you should never take it seriously, and instead of being scared of the Will Smith fish, you can laugh at that and how this movie aged as well as Will Smith's career after he won Best Actor. I mean, if I could do it with 2019's Cats, then I could do the same with Shark Tale. But for now, though, I think I'll take a long break before seeing Oscar's face again. Hey guys, this is Animat, and before I continue, I just want to give out a huge thanks to the official PSASD for his amazing support on Patreon, which allowed him to get some amazing rewards, including this one, where he got to ask me to review Shark Tale. And by the way, there is an interesting fact with PSASD. He's actually the person who technically discovered the Sykes meme. You know the meme where you see the Martin Scorsese's pufferfish where he would suddenly turn to the camera with this blank expression and then it would zoom in onto his face? Yeah, PSASD is the one who actually discovered that and made a post about it where it would just then turn into a viral meme. So if you enjoyed that one, well then, you got the official PSASD to go and thank. And also, I would like to mention I have talked to him a few times, and he's actually a really nice guy, very pleasant to be around with. But anyways, back to Shark Tale. I gotta admit that I was not expecting that this movie would be this bad. Now, admittedly, there was a part of me before going into this review where I kind of knew that this movie was not going to be good, especially with the reputation that it has gathered over the years. And I knew that I'm most likely not gonna go and suddenly find myself making a positive review about Shark Tale. But with the way that this movie turned out, yeah, it even exceeded my expectations on how bad it would be. And not to mention, when it comes to the review itself, it exceeded my expectations on how big it would become because, as it turns out, I had a lot to say in terms of what went wrong with Shark Tale and really had to go into the analysis and really dive deep into like all of its problems and stuff like that. So this turned out to be much bigger than I could have ever expected. But anyways, I'm officially done with it, and I'm so happy that I could go and move on from Shark Tale. And speaking of moving on, by the way, it is now time that we could go and move on to the animation hat for the next review. And by the way, before I go and pick that next review, I would like to go and say that if you would like to be like the official PSASD and you want to support my work and get some amazing rewards, including but not limited to seeing my videos before anyone else, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you would like to go and suggest an animated film you would like me to review and that I would put onto the animation hat, then write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. All right, so let's see what we got on our next request. Hopefully, it will be something better than Shark Tale. And I just picked up a bunch. I'll just go with this. All right, so the next review shall be... If I could find the opening of this, where the fridge... I rolled this one tight. Okay, let's see. Okay, I got it. Now we can open it, and it's... Oh, this one. Okay. Oh my God. Well, I guess it's time that I go and talk about this now. All right. So it looks like, well, the good news is that it is definitely better than Shark Tale, but this will be one that I think will be a very interesting movie to go and discuss because we're going to be looking into an anime, but this isn't just any ordinary anime. This could debatably be one of, if not the biggest and currently, as I am recording this, the most popular Japanese animated movie. But is the hype really worth it on this one? Well, that's going to be a case where you're going to have to find out.
Oscar, you've lost everything you lied so hard to achieve. Tell me, what's next for you?